Hey, my name is Terry and thanks for coming back for tutorial number 3 on animation keyframing. In the last tutorial we talked about setting up keyframes using roughs, and we made approximately 3 keyframes, and we talked about how sometimes things don't match or do match. So in this tutorial we shouldn't really do an inking, but we're going to go ahead and ink the frames that we have right now so we can just see how they look. And normally we wouldn't ink the frames until we were done with the betweens. So this time we're just going to do this so that we can see that our frames look. Okay, well normally you'd have a background when you do keys or animation in general, but this time we're not working with the background, so what we want to do is just establish a plane of interest along the lines of Angelina Jolie's face we have here. So what we're doing is we're making a box so that we can see just where the horizon line is going to lie, and also where the pivot point is going to be on the neck, so we can absolutely know for sure how the pivot is going to take place alongside the neck. So with this perspective box we'll be able to tell just where the head is pivoting on the neck. Now that we have a perspective box and also the reference material keys in the background, we're going to want to dim those so that we can see what we're doing on a new layer. Now when we get to the new layer we're going to want to do our lines and not make any mistakes, but we also don't want those materials getting in the way of what we're looking at. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start drawing on this first keyframe. What I've done is I've dimmed the reference in the background, and currently I'm creating a shape for the face, which should be the definite lines that I will use for the face, unless I see later on that the keyframe doesn't match with the other drawings that I'm making. Okay, I'm to the ear now, so basically the ear connects to the head, of course, and then we see the cheekbones that are there. And now I'm moving on to the hair, and right now I'm using a number 4 in terms of the pen size, and that should be appropriate for some of the outer edges and the larger, more rough edges that I'll need to make in order to complete the drawing. The outer edges are really not that important to the expression, so it's okay to use a larger, more stylized pen tip for this particular procedure. As you can see, I'm doing more of the hair now and getting into some of the curls that are necessary in order to animate the hair falling around the face, curving around to the top and also through to the other side as well. And I'll come down to the more staticky portion of the drawing and make those lines as well. Okay, so now that I'm done with the major lines of the face that frame the face, what I want to do is change the pen tip size and zoom in so I can get a little bit more close to the face and do some of the details involved. It's really important to get the lips right and into the expression that you initially saw, or the expression that you would like them to be. This isn't going to be an exact replica of anything having to do with Angelina Jolie, but it was a nice subject to be able to start with so that I have a nice clean face to model after in the initial drawing, and also to continue with in terms of the animation. Now that I've got the nose and the mouth, I'm going to go ahead and head to the eyes and see if I can get those to look right. Of course, there's always going to be the iris inside the eye, and there's always a little bit of a shine in there as well. That gives a life to the eyes as opposed to there just being a dullness. Sometimes when you back away far enough you can't see a light in the eyes, and it's okay to probably just leave it dull enough to where you can just see maybe a silhouette of the eye, but in this case we're really up close, so I'm just going to draw the little light there. And of course the eyebrows are really important to the whole expression because they can tell a lot. Even just the eyebrows will say whether a person is surprised, happy, or just having a good day. So now that I backed away, we can see that the expression fits the face pretty well. And now we want to check some of the features that are in the face as well on the outside edges, just to make sure that they conform with the inside. There might be some problems here with the jaw, or maybe the jawbone there, because initially I want it to look a certain way. I want to be able to use the lines, the finalized lines, to go to the next key and not necessarily worry that they might deform in the wrong way. Now I'm just flipping through a few of the keyframes just to make sure that that finalize keyframe is going to be a good reference and when I'm onion skinning to the next frame. So now that we've got the first face drawn, we're going to go to the second face, and hopefully we'll be able to draw this so that it matches with the first face when we flip the keyframes. It looks like the background referencing is a little bit messed up. The keyframe doesn't exactly, the rough keyframe doesn't exactly match the box that we have because the box is going up in the perspective, and when we drew the keyframe we didn't have a perspective reference. Now the head has to be facing up as well to a certain degree, and that we will fix once we draw this final keyframe. I seem to be using a number 2 again, and that's not altogether inappropriate. Sometimes whenever you're drawing the insides of the face and they no longer lie on the outer edges of the actual keyframe, the line weight can change to a 2, but in this case it looks like I'll probably go back and use a 4 and retrace my steps. So get just the top of the head and proceed to draw the oval that was there in the rough. It's really difficult to get this spot on, and I see a lot of the comic artists go at it and they do their speed paintings and they can just wish around and draw gestures and do that really quickly, and that is really nice. I admire the line work and all of the showmanship that they have going there, but in this case we'll have to be a little bit more careful because one keyframe has to match the next, and sometimes gestures won't work for that. I'm having to go back there on the bottom of the face and make sure it's exactly the oval that I want to get. I don't erase everything sometimes. I just go in and make a new line and then come back and erase something else. Now, that'll happen sometimes when you're drawing digitally, but when you're using a normal pen and pieces, or a pencil and a piece of paper, and you've got your light box, it doesn't occur a lot of the times. You can usually get the line you want if you're going organic as opposed to digital. Even Flash will sometimes fix your line drawings, and that becomes annoying sometimes when you made a line and the Flash decides that it wants to do a different line that you've already planned. It's important to get the perspective right on the face, so I'm moving it up again even more so that we'll be able to understand where the face comes in whenever we squash and stretch. Now I'm getting ready to draw some of the hairlines in the second keyframe. Actually, this is going to be the first keyframe in the sequence, but it appears to be the second keyframe that we're drawing. The first keyframe was made from reference, so the second keyframe we'll just draw here before the first one we made. As you'll notice, I'm flipping more back and forth between the keyframes because it's become more important that I match the lines from one keyframe to the next and make as little mistakes as possible. Of course, some of the lines will move a little bit further than they did in the first keyframe or disappear from view, in which case we'll just draw a little bit more of the line here on the hair that's coming around from the other side of it, the head. When you're flipping keyframes, sometimes it's hard to see everything and get everything within your eye and your field of vision, and when that happens I usually tend to squint myself. I either squint or open my eyes really wide so that I can see everything that's there. I think a lot of artists have this problem, and probably it's not anything unique to me, but for myself I tend to have that little aneurysm where I'll open my eyes up and make sure everything looks okay. Now, when it comes to stuff that's very similar and from drawing to drawing, and it looks almost exactly the same, I'll usually turn on an onion skin and maybe just draw the exact same lines that I see in the first drawing. Onion skin, of course, is real useful because you can see the drawing before, you can see the drawing after. You don't necessarily have to flip through as much when you're using onion skinning. It's equivalent to using a light box and being able to see what's below the drawing. Now I've got to switch line weights so that I can go in and do the feature